He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hey guys, and welcome to episode 28 of 911 Lone Star Roundup. I'm one of your hosts, EJ, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Katie.
Hey guys.
And Grace.
Hey guys.
Today we will be talking about 911 Lone Star Season 2, Episode 12, titled The Big Heat. A lot happened in this episode, a lot of Tarlos, so we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
Buckle up, guys. This is going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had the feeling. I mean, when we watched it, because we watched it together. I mean, it wasn't my first time, but it felt like my first time watching it. So like we were like, yeah, we have a lot to talk about, and that was like 4 days ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My urge to say everything has not dimmed since then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And please excuse any language, because we may use a few words here and there.
Yes.
My mother was talking to me about how much I was using the F word just so that she could hear from my word.
I know.
From my room.
I know. Same.
And I'm just like, shh.
I know.
Just shut.
I know. My mom's like, you're dropping a lot of F-bombs, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, damn, it's probably because of me watching Roden Ruffus live from last Sunday, because every other word is fuck that.
That's the truth. I still haven't watched that live. I need to do so.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyways.
Yeah, so the episode starts with, at the end of last episode, we got TK's point of view of Owen, calling Owen and asking him to bring limes. And so this is Owen's point of view of getting the limes. And so we find out that he's like telling TK he's got to run an errand, and he goes into that textile factory that he'd been dealing with and found the fake circuit breaker. So he took pictures of it, and the arsonist is there and knocks him out.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and there's fire around him, and then he passes out again and wakes up again at Billy's house.
I liked that they gave us like his point of view, because it gives more context. Like we kind of saw like all of this, but it was very faint, so like this gave a lot more like idea.
The first time he woke up, he kind of looked and he saw the arsonist in the distance, but he couldn't make him out. He just could tell like it was a person.
It was a person. You couldn't have told gender or anything from that. It was just like, okay. I believe the statistics are like the majority of arsonists are male, but I know I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
Still, you can't tell.
Yeah.
That would be the one time.
Yeah. Well, even Owen said in the previous episode, like, how he knew it was a man and he knew this and that. So that kind of, like, shows that a little bit.
Yeah. So Owen wakes up the second time he's at Billy's. Billy has rescued him. Billy kind of followed him there. To help him, and then
I love how he was kind of like,
him.
I can't leave the dude to do this on his own.
I know,
right? Yeah.
Even though he didn't want to get involved, he still helped.
Which at this point, Billy is still the most likely contender for being the arsonist, and this doesn't like dispute that necessarily, because like, why is he there? Yeah. Like, there's that question, but I was like, I kind of liked that it was Billy that saved him.
Oh yeah, especially since like, I don't know, like I feel like we're gonna talk about this a lot, but I feel like this episode made me like Billy a lot more than I did previously. I feel like it gave a better I feel like it just gave a better image of him. And like, I love how the first thing is so typical. The first thing he says when he wakes up, so it was you. It was like, okay.
And you're not in a place to
and then he kept being exactly. And then he kept being like, where's my phone? Where's my phone?
And at first, and you're just like, I know, I was like, oh dear, he really needs that phone. Because, you know, it's iffy enough with the photos, seeing as he was alone. But without the photos, it's way more iffy. So it's like, oh crap.
Yeah. Well, and also, you know, he's like looking for his phone, and he's got the pictures on there, and I love how Billy was the one that kind of pointed it out. He's like, so you want to go to the police with photos of you proving that you were trespassing on a crime scene illegally? He's like, if I were you, I'd just delete those.
Yeah.
I admit, after this episode, I do like Billy a lot more.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely becoming slightly more fond of him last episode, but there was still that, like, sort of demonical, so to speak, hanging over of if he's the arsonist.
Well, yeah, and I mean, episode 6, 7 of the season 1, you know, we ended the season with and basically tried to take the 126 from Owen, and he tried to ruin Owen, and then like karma came back and bit him in the butt, and you know, lightning and stuff. So like I wasn't real happy with him, but it seemed like at the end of that 7th episode that they kind of had a mutual understanding, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of surprised to see Billy back, but I love Billy Burke, the actor, so I think he's from Washington. I'm from Washington, so amen.
I mean, support those first states.
But yeah, so eventually Owen and Billy kind of have a conversation, and Billy finally gives Owen back his cell phone, and Owen's like, I gotta go, and then he's like, do you have any limes?
That was hilarious. I love
that.
Like, also I forgot to mention this last time, but his house was like way nicer than I expected his house to be, if that makes any sense. Like for him, I was like, when we were watching, I was like, man, his house is nicer than I expected it to be.
Right.
It was very nice.
I think even Owen said, if he's like, this is what I expected if I liked antlers or something on my walls.
Owen is so New York. I'm sorry.
He's such a city boy.
Yeah, exactly.
I just kind of like, we never had antlers on our walls, but like I was country. That was not unusual. So as country as you can get south of Maryland. Anyway.
So Owen finally shows up at TK and Carlos's.
2 hours late.
2 hours late. With a bunch of limes. So
I'm surprised the cavalry hadn't been called by that
I know. Well, when he finally got his phone back, he had like several missed calls and a bunch of texts from TK.
Yeah.
And he was blaming Cinco de Mayo for being like the store he went to out of limes, so he had to go somewhere else. And he started coming up with this very like
bullshit
fake
story.
It was so bullshit it almost worked. Like
yeah. Well, I don't know. In my head, I was like thinking it was so bullshit because like I'm sorry, but who runs out of limes? That's just such a random thing to run out of. I mean, I know it's possible, but like it was just like too much. I was like, really, limes?
You couldn't have come up with anything else?
I don't know. I just
and then but he meets Andrea and meets up with Gabriel again. I like the interaction. I love that, you know, we finally get the good side of Carlos's parents, you know, like, I mean, I guess we never had a bad side of his mom.
Yeah, and we kind of got in a semi-positive. Gabriel was still up in the air.
Yeah.
Like, he'd not given me any reason to dislike him last episode. But, and again, sort of demonicals, kind of hanging over the head. But I was glad to see Andrea, just because, seriously, we've got nothing with her.
I know, I love her, especially since the last episode, and also I liked, like, Owen shaking her hand and her being like, we kiss in this family, and Owen's like, bring it, let's go.
Yes, I love it.
I love that.
There were so many just little things in this scene. Like, one of my other favorite lines from her is her being like after Owen saying, like, oh, you probably get this a lot, but you raised a fantastic son, and her being like, same thing about TK, and then her being like, we couldn't be happier that the boys are together. I was like, oh!
I'm like, hell yeah, we knew that.
I love that.
It was so cute. And then TK smells smoke on Owen, and he's all sus about it. As he should be.
Right.
I'm just like, boy, you already 2 hours late. Why didn't you just take a shower?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he blames it on the fire he was in days ago.
I'm like, I'm sorry,
and his
smoke
organic
clings.
shampoo.
Smoke clings, but it doesn't cling as strongly as that would have been that long.
Yeah. I mean, I could believe it with the shampoo, but like also I'm kind of like, okay, Owen, we know you're fibbing anyways.
Right. So then he talks, and then Gabriel's like, oh, the fire over on Pecos. And so Gabriel is aware of it, and him and Owen start talking about it. And
he also thinks it's an arson.
He also kind of unofficially thinks it's arson. And so he's unofficially been looking into it as well.
Yeah.
And as soon as I heard this, I'm like, because I had a suspicion the last couple of episodes. I'm like, what if the arrest of Owen is just like a ploy,
staged?
Yeah. So I wish we would have had a little more Owen and Gabriel before the arrest.
Yeah.
So as but obviously they didn't want the viewers to know that this was fake. But...
Yeah. A lot of people wish that we would have got that plan, but that was the whole genius scheme of this episode. It was the point that we didn't know that, and honestly, I think I would have not liked. I liked not knowing that because it gave suspense. Like otherwise, it would have been so predictable.
Otherwise, we would have known everything, but kept watching it unfold from the outside. We were already having that a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I love like them like theorizing, I guess, and Carlos just being like, "Dad, should I make you a tinfoil hat while I'm here?"
Yeah, I know, it was hilarious.
I was like, "Ooh, Carlos."
I love that.
But like TK's like, wait a second, you guys think that a firefighter would be the one to do this?
It's not unusual,
right?
Yeah.
It's fairly common.
Very common. And,
yeah.
That's what kind of Owen and Gabriel kind of explain. And yeah, I loved how everything came together to a point. There were some things I was like, really, guys, shared it with somebody else. Sorry. We'll get to that part.
We'll get that. We have so much to.
And it kind of the last of the scene is, well, Gabriel's like, well, if you have any suspicions, let me know. And Owen's like, yeah, I'll definitely be in touch. And then that night afterwards, he goes over to Judd's to talk to Judd about Billy possibly being the arsonist, or to have Judd talk him out of believing that Billy's the arsonist.
Yeah.
Which I love that, like that Owen was at least recognizing that Judd has known Billy the longest and would know more about Billy than Owen does.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and he had to like feel out the situation too, because like that's not really something you want to accuse somebody of, which obviously
especially with the murky past already there.
Especially
like I was kind of glad to have the past incident referred to, but I was also glad it wasn't like main focal point, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And I mean, Owen had some valid like concerns because Judd was trying to say that Billy's not really up for it because he can barely stand with all the chemo he's been getting, and Owen's like, well, he carried me out of that warehouse fine.
I know. I'm like, okay, that's fair though.
I wanted to be like, so did you last season. You carried him like literally so far when you were golfing. So that's like
4 miles in 4 minutes or something. Or
it was
across a golf course, and
it was far. So I
think it was from like the 8th hole or something.
Yeah, it was far. So I'm like, two can play that game.
And Judd, and Judd's like, well, don't report it. You shouldn't report it, to smear his name. And Grace comes out.
I was like, yes, Grace.
I like, go Grace. She's like, you have to report this, Owen. She's like, if you even suspect it, you have to report it. You can't just sit on it.
And she's right. It's better to be suspected and proven innocent than to let a guilty party get away.
Right. So our next scene is Billy suspiciously meets up with the AFD investigator Raymond and shows him some pictures that he'd taken of Owen walking up to the fire, someplace. It didn't seem like it was the same.
Yeah, scene. I don't know. I didn't really look closely at it, but it was supposed to be the warehouse. That's what at least Billy said. And stuff, which I was kind of like iffy about the scene, like in the promo, because I was like, first of all, like, how do you know that like this was taken when he says it was taken? Because it was light out when he took the picture. When Owen went there, it was dark, so I was just like,
So what I'm thinking is they staged those pictures.
Oh, I'm definitely thinking that.
Oh yeah, now I'm thinking that.
But
like, when I first saw the promo, I wasn't really thinking that quite yet.
Right. Oh yeah, we had no way of knowing that. At this point, it still looks suspicious on Billy's part. Like he just, Owen's been wearing tons of hoodies lately. He could have taken that anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's still very suspicious of Billy.
But our next scene is Mateo is at Owen's or his place now, and with Buttercup. He's eating cereal, and Buttercup's whining for some, and he's like, "No, boy, you can't have any. Quit begging."
And Buttercup, no begging, boy. I love that part.
Yeah, and then he ends up giving him a handful. And it's like, okay, but don't tell Cap.
I love it.
The
story of my life.
Yeah, then you get the knock on the door. The police come. They want to. Basically, they tear apart Owen's place and start taking stuff out, and it's Texas Rangers and
Mateo is so
police.
Confused.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, he's like freaked out.
Yeah,
because no one's even telling him what the hell's going on.
Yeah, Buttercup's barking. Mateo's just like, wait, can you guys at least wipe your feet off? Cap is very never mind.
Yeah,
I was like, Mateo.
Yeah,
and Mateo.
And then we get Owen arrested. Slightly different angle as the previous episode's like preview.
Oh yeah, the other episode was like way too like dramatic, and it was way too just like much. I was just like, I was kind of like cringing at like the previous one they showed because it was just like really. Yeah. But this one, like, it wasn't as bad, so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And Owen tells Gabriel, he's like, 2 days ago you didn't believe there was an arsonist, and Gabriel's like, well, yeah, we believe you now. And it's like, I'm like, no, Gabriel did believe it was an arsonist. So that was my first clue that like this was really a setup.
Exactly. Yeah. The moment he said that, I'm like, that's not right.
Yeah, this is when the wheels started turning, and I was like, okay, there's something up with this, and I'm like trying to think, and I'm like, okay, it comes to me very soon, but I'm just like, okay, that something here is not right.
And I'll just say that, you know, for at least the first half of the episode, Billy was my main choice as far as the suspect went, but I also thought that was too obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like everything, I'm like, okay, it could be him, but as we know from last episode, I called that it was the fire investigator.
Yes. Yeah, that like came to me like after we recorded after that weekend. I was like being like, there's no way the investigator isn't crooked. That was like my main thing.
In some way.
He seemed crooked when I first saw him on screen in that episode.
Oh, yeah. Like when he was interviewing him, there was something off about that, and that should have been the first red flag. But I was just like, there's something up about this dude, but I can't figure it out. And I kind of was just like, well, he has to be crooked after that.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so I'm assuming it's been a day since Billy gave the pictures to the investigator, because I think Mateo, like the house was raided that morning. So then now we've got Mateo at the fire station explaining what happened.
Mateo, you should have chosen better living arrangements, honestly. You don't get a moment's peace.
Oh my god,
know,
yeah.
Right?
Poor boy.
Poor boy, yeah.
I also love these situations, and for him, because the way he explains things is always just like the best.
Oh yeah.
Like, he just like, he was like, I'm telling you, it was a full-on raid. It was something out of Scarface. They ransacked the whole place, and I was like, oh yeah.
And TK is
poor
like,
TK is like
so
pacing.
Confused.
He's like he's going off the rails. He's like, well, like, why were they even there and like stuff? And Mateo's just like, I don't know. They wouldn't tell me anything.
They seriously wouldn't. I'm like, come on.
Right. Yeah, because it's an active investigation for one. Two, Mateo has really nothing to do with it, even though he lives with Owen, and so a lot of reasons why they wouldn't tell him anything. Then, but I loved when they're explaining. Mateo's like, oh, they just took some charred lamps, extension cords, some jars with liquid, and then I love Paul like, wait, liquid? What kind of liquid? I'm like, I loved him doing his thing.
Yes, his thing.
It's like, yes, Paul will figure it out. But then TK's trying to call Owen, and then Carlos shows up. So they kind of move out into the engine bay and start.
Can we just say they looked really pretty in that scene?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they always look really pretty. But
so I rewatched the episode last night, and I didn't notice the first few times I've watched it, but in the background behind Carlos, his partner was with him.
Oh yeah. Really?
I've
only watched it once, so I've been so busy.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think the second time I watched it, I've rewatched this scene because I was trying to like I don't know. I was trying to piece a couple things together about this because a lot happened.
Yeah.
So much, yeah.
So basically, TK's relieved to see Carlos at first because he's like worried about his dad. Carlos wants to talk in private, and then Carlos tells TK that his dad was taken into custody, and the conversation kind of gets a little more heated when TK is realizing, or Carlos shares, that he believes that Owen was arrested for arson, and that the Texas Rangers are the ones that arrested him. And Carlos is semi kind of trying to, like, I don't know. Carlos was in a tough spot. I mean, TK was too, but
this is kind of the moment where it's like, don't shoot the messenger.
Right.
Yeah.
Carlos is just the messenger.
He's like, I'm just telling you, and he's like, well, we don't know anything right now. We just this is the bare minimum, and then he's trying to apologize to TK for, and he's like, you're sorry? He's out of his mind if he thinks that my dad's an arsonist, Carlos.
Which, yeah, well,
yeah,
he's like, we don't have all the facts, and I'm like, true, but really don't.
I mean, Carlos kind of dug himself a hole though a little bit by saying, yeah, I checked up on your dad's story, and he was 2 hours late to dinner, and there was no accident or something like that, where he said there was last night.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't completely wrong. I mean, he wasn't even wrong. Like, he's just stating everything that he can go off of.
He kind of need to start shutting up at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
But also at the same time, he couldn't have, because TK wanted the details.
Right.
And, like, it would have been worse if he'd lied to him.
Yeah, well, TK, this is how I see it. Like, TK was spinning out. It kind of reminds me in episode 3. And a lot of people have said that they think this is just TK's way of coping with things. Because, like, obviously this is a very emotional situation. Your dad is, like, being accused of arson. He's been arrested. You haven't even been able to see him. And, like, Carlos is just trying to update him what's happening, which is good that he actually, like, went there and tried to tell him what was happening. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it kind of, as you said in episode 3, it reminded me of him going to the bar to get beaten up.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd say to go look for a fight, but he really wanted to go get beat up.
Yeah.
I think he's just kind of one of those people that just sometimes emotion spills over, and it's just very hard to deal with them. And this is a tough situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And TK was definitely getting he was getting upset, and he did push Carlos a few times, and Carlos had to kind of put him in kind of wrapped his arms around him from behind and kind of tried to hold on to him so it would stop, fighting.
Right.
And I'll save my response till later in the episode about how I feel about that. It was a tough scene, and, like, as a Tarlos
I wasn't
fan,
expecting it.
I'm like, I hate seeing our dads fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carlos was in a tough spot, now that I remember that his partner was there or saw that, I kind of feel like Carlos might have been out on another call and got wind that Captain Strand had been arrested, and he was kind of freaked out, and then, like, his first stop was the fire station to tell TK, like, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's like he knew not much, and so TK freaking out on him was kind of not ideal.
Yeah.
But also TK had the right to be upset, and worried.
Yeah, it was valid. And, like, Carlos was in Carlos's head. He was trying to calm him down, and he was doing. And somebody made a really good point that, like, Carlos was being 3 people at once. He was trying to be a cop, a boyfriend, and a son all at once. And so, and when I heard that, I was like, wait, that makes so much sense. And, like, I viewed it in that way. And, like, he's trying to de-escalate the situation because nobody wants a full-on fight to break out, which I don't think it would have gotten that far.
No,
I don't think so, no.
I think the crew would have stepped in if TK got much more.
Yeah, but I don't think they would have, just, like, in general.
Honestly, if Carlos had actually felt threatened, he could have more than taken care of himself.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, at some point, he did, like, put us up to it by putting TK in that hold, but you can tell he doesn't feel threatened.
No, yeah.
So it's like, even as a boyfriend, he's still a cop, so he'd know.
Yeah, definitely. And, like, it was kind of like, if you look at it, it was kind of sweet the way he was trying to be like, listen to me, listen, like, you need to calm down, okay? But like, it was also like, I'm in TK's situation. If I was in that situation, which I've been in situations like that, if telling me to calm down does
Don't you
not
tell me to
help.
calm down.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like the worst phrase.
You know,
Yeah.
actually one of the only things that left me feeling wrong about that scene was actually Judd telling Carlos to go. And
Ooh.
to explain why, it made me feel like Carlos was still being treated as he'd done something wrong. And that was just personally how I viewed it. Like, I get Judd was being a big brother, like, being protective, and that's great, but Carlos was he was in a rough spot too.
Yeah.
He kind of didn't need to be kicked out.
Yeah.
Even though if it may have been the best for TK, it's still just kind of look on his face, letting go of TK and just kind of leaving. It was like,
And you could tell Rafa had like almost tears in his eyes.
Oh yeah, they both did. Well, TK was physically crying if you saw like the end part. Yeah, and like, yeah, I never even thought about like that kind of view of it. And I like that. Yeah.
So actually, like, you know, in the moment, everything was all high strung, but really the thing to stay after me with that had been like Carlos being told to leave, and I'm just like, I'm kind of glad that his partner had been with him, because just him going and being alone, that would not have been great.
Yeah.
And he's also trying to stay as professional as possible because he is in his uniform and doesn't want to, you know, have that as well on top of all that.
Yeah.
I'll save the rest of what I was going to say until later, because I feel like it'd be better afterwards. So after this kind of blow up between TK and Carlos, we get Gabriel interviewing Owen at the station, and we have Raymond and the detective watching in on it, and Gabriel makes the comment about out of respect of our relationship and our sons. And then Raymond's like, what do you mean by their relationship or their son's relationship? And the detective's like, I believe they're a couple. And that's what I was like, the investigator was like, his face, you could tell, like, he's like, wait, what?
Yeah, when we were watching it, I was like, how does he not know what that means? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, relationship is a very choice term.
Yeah.
I think you should be able to use your own brain to figure out what that means.
Yeah, no, they're just best buddies. No.
Very best buddies.
And just as he figures, like, he hears that, then Billy walks up to continue watching the interrogation, you could say.
I thought that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I had thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do too.
I thought it was weird that Billy was there, but then I was like, if he did, quote unquote, like, give evidence that it was Owen, the investigator might want him there to listen, because he is a respected captain in the fire department, even though he is out on medical right now. But then again, like, I feel like Gabriel and Owen would want him there as kind of a buffer.
I mean, like, having somebody on the other side of the glass who was in on it was a good thing. Just like not being aware of the situation made it a little weirder, but like in retrospect, it made more sense.
Yeah. And so Owen makes a comment that he reported the fires to Raymond. And why would he do that if he was the one that set them? And Raymond kind of looks at Billy and's like, that's a fair point.
Yeah, like, well, Billy being there, it is kind of weird, just because you think if like Billy's saying Owen did it, but Owen's saying Billy did it, that's kind of like two suspects, even if they're not even looking at Billy. And even though there is this mastermind plan behind this whole situation, but it's kind of like weird, but also like I kind of like that, because he's just like, well, that's a good point.
But like, also arsonists are also desperate for recognition and attention.
Oh yeah,
like, it makes sense enough, but it's still you know.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of during this point that Owen was even threw out that it could possibly be Billy. I know it came up a couple of times in their conversations in different ways. But before we get much more of that, we get Mateo at the house trying to clean up. And he's like looking at Buttercup and holding this pasta cutter, and he's like, what is this, boy?
Yeah.
Honestly, I had no idea either.
Same. I was like, what is that? Like, I didn't know.
And TK comes back and scares Mateo. Dude, you scared me. For a second, I thought more stormtroopers were coming through that door.
Oh my god, I love that line. That's probably like top 10 lines of the episode because like Mateo.
It's so Mateo.
It's him and his pop culture references.
Yeah, he mostly makes like Star Wars and anything like Marvel or like superhero related is like, and I think that like I don't know, it's just everything.
And you know, TK apologizes and he's like, I should have texted you. He's just struggling because he's afraid to go back home to Carlos's because of what happened with him and Carlos that day, and he wasn't really sure what to do, and he, I guess, had gone to the fire station or the police station to talk to Owen, and they wouldn't let him see him.
That was so sad.
Mateo kind of trying to encourage him because, you know, Mateo's kind of worried too. But he's like, you know, he's the Cap. He's the latest in a long line of superheroes that's been falsely accused. Thor, Daredevil, Spider-Man. I mean, I love his like references. And
I mean, you ain't wrong.
Super like encouraging, I think, for TK. And
I especially love it from him because everybody sees him like as like the probie, but he has a lot of like encouraging moments where he like just gives like this like encouragement, and I'm like, yes, thank you.
He's got this like. It's not odd, but it's like he's got wisdom to him.
Oh yeah, definitely. My favorite part is like at the end where he's just like, "Can I ask you something? What is this?" And TK's like laughing. He's like, "It's a pasta cutter." And Mateo's like, "Ah, yeah, I see it now. Okay."
Honestly, it looked more like a dog shedder to me. So.
Oh my god, it totally does. Like it looks like this dog brush that I have. I'm not even joking. Like,
no, same. I was honestly like, obviously to be a pasta cutter, it had to be a dog brush and everything.
Right.
But if it hadn't been, I would have loved to have him just be like, okay, let's get Buttercup shredded. And then TK comes in and it's like, that's not what that's for.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad TK had this moment though. I think he needed kind of some calming down, and
we see that like he's struggle. He's no longer emotional, so to speak, but like he's worrying with emotions.
Yeah, and
I liked this in between.
Yes, and also I think they need more like just Mateo and TK scenes. Like I was like after seeing this, I was like, wait, we never get just them two in a scene. So I was like, I want that.
Yeah. No, I love Big Brother, Little Brother kind of vibes. Because it's true. Yeah. They're probably not actually that far apart in age, but
no.
Yeah.
So we get the next scene is kind of odd. So Owen's still in interrogation, and Raymond comes in when Gabriel's not there. Turns off the microphone and camera and starts talking to Raymond or Owen.
I'm like, that's fucking suspect.
I'm like, this is a little odd. And
Sus.
So the investigator is like asking Owen all these questions, and like, were there fires that you looked into or were considering looking into that, you know, you didn't? And, you know, Owen's like telling him he thinks it's Billy, and then Gabriel kind of walks in on them, and they step out and start arguing about why that Raymond was investigating or talking to Owen without permission, or especially because he wasn't recording any of it.
Which this is when I was like, okay, like I'm starting to put together like why he turned it off and why this is so suspicious and like all this stuff. And
by this point I'm like, my suspicion is validated.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Honestly, it was so suspicious.
Yeah, it was just like, one thing after another, and I was like, okay, yeah, he's definitely guilty. Like, I didn't really piece it together until we got to one of the next scenes. But like I started like putting the puzzle pieces together. This is when I started like being like, okay, this is probably what's going to go down.
Right. Yeah. Isn't this also when Raymond was like to Gabriel, he's like, you should have expressed to me or that the conflict of interest of like their sons being a couple.
Well, he was accusing Gabriel of homophobia.
That too.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like,
that he was locked onto Strand.
Yeah, like well, I kind of thought it was like, because he said something along the lines of like, you're focused on Strand because your sons are dating and you don't like that, whatever that means. But I was just like, what? Okay.
And then Gabriel's like, well, now there's proof or something, and so he goes back in to talk to Owen, quote unquote talk, and shares that there was a victim in the fire that was found that had been in surgery, and when he wakes up, he's gonna ID Owen. And
at that point, it was like, no, it's so obvious what's going on here.
Yeah,
at least that's what I thought.
Oh yeah.
And I love Owen's response. Well, we can pound sand because when they wake up, they're gonna exonerate me.
Oh yeah, that was like perfect.
I loved that, and I'm like, at that point, I also figured that, that the victim, that was fake. Because there was no way they were going to arrest someone real. And I'm just kind of like, oh, this is gonna be epic when it goes down.
Right. And so I think at this moment I was still 50-50 with Billy and the investigator being kind of one of them. But then when he started talking about that, and you could see his interest peak when Gabriel mentioned the person that was in surgery. So I'm like, I'm leaning more. And then obviously we get the next scene is Billy's trying to leave his house and Judd shows up. He's like, don't you know what a telephone is?
I love that line. I was like, oh my god, if only you could say that to some of my family members.
And of course, like, at this point we're figuring out, like, this does not seem like it's Billy, like, this doesn't look like it. But of course Judd just figured out that it possibly is Billy.
Right.
And it's like, oh no, Judd, you're a little late to the party. The party already left. They're just a few stragglers.
Yes.
And my God. See, this is where I wish their little scheme had been informed to, like, at least a few people, like Judd. He was
like, I get they couldn't have. I get they couldn't have done it, but it was still like, you just inadvertently gave Billy a bruised jaw.
Oh yeah, like he literally clocks him. Like you could tell he didn't actually want to at first. Like he was like, "No, I can't do that," but that he just does it. Like
he's just kind of like, "Fuck it," and he
was like, "Bam!" He hits him, and then he like basically falls down or whatever. And I'm like, "Oop."
Yeah.
Okay.
And when he got there, Billy was getting ready to leave, and so there was that glimmer at the beginning of that scene where I'm like, okay, why is Billy leaving at the same time? Because that's when also the investigator they were probably heading to the hospital. So I'm like, what's the deal here? And then kind of this scene ends with, Billy kicking Judd out and him leaving. We get to the hospital and somebody's walking in with a syringe of something. And the room where supposedly that person is, this person goes into, and camera pulls back and we see it's the investigator, just as Gabriel and the Rangers come in with their guns up.
Which I was like, when I saw that it was him, I was like half shocked, but also I was like half like I knew it, because like I don't know, like there were some parts of it where I was like, okay, it could go either way, but I was very relieved that it was him rather than Billy, because Billy, I think I would have been a little angry about that, because I was a little too suspicious and also a little too similar to 6 and 7 of the previous episode or the previous season.
Honestly, at that point, I would have been sad because I was getting attached.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I don't remember exactly how I reacted. We were on Zoom. You guys would know how I reacted to this.
Yeah.
But my basic reaction was, validation!
Oh, yes, everything.
I called it!
Yeah, you did. I was like...
Mainly because Billy would have been way too cliche.
Right. Yeah,
and I don't like cliche.
True.
I don't either. Like, I was like, this is too typical of the previous season. And it would have been like a replay, but just a little bit more of a twist. And no. But I like the part after this one, like, Gabriel is like arresting him. Also, like Gabriel, I was like, wow, we just got a fine taste of like the kind of cop he is, and I was like, I like it.
I was like, ooh, okay.
He's a major, actually. He's not just a Texas Ranger. He's a major in the Texas Rangers.
Ooh, yes, badass. Now we know where Carlos gets it from.
Before we go any further, I want to say I had this thought the other day, and I'm like, since 911 focuses on first responders, Texas Rangers is one of the biggest, well-known like police force in Texas. So I have a funny feeling we're gonna get a lot more Gabriel in the series.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm going to be okay with that, honestly.
Yeah, same.
He half redeemed himself at the end of 8, and since then I've kind of been liking him more. I think he's just a hard nose.
Yes.
And hard noses can be hard to like at first, but they can grow on you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is like probably one of my favorite parts.
Yes.
So like him arresting the investigator dude, I just in real life, whenever I talk about this, I want to call him the arsonist. I'm like, that's just the easiest thing to say. But I like Gabriel saying, "Oh, and you're wrong. I love that my boy's with his kid." And
I was like, hell yes.
Yes. I was like,
I think we needed that verbal confirmation.
Yes, because there was always suspicion that like Gabriel would have been like maybe not supportive of like.
Yeah. We knew that like Carlos at some point had thought, that he just wasn't supported, right? And we could see that he wasn't not supported. Yeah, but we didn't know that he was supported. So
exactly.
And I love Owen's responses. He's like, likewise. Same. But speaking of the boys, they're going to be pissed that we left them in the dark. Gabriel's like, yeah, I imagine so. And Owen's like, well, one thing's for sure. The Reyes and the Strand family make a good team. And I'm like, oh, that's such a reference to 110.
Honestly, I did not catch that reference till now. But, like, I liked the term anyway. And now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, oh, wait.
Yeah, I like
if you know, you know.
Yeah, I got that right off the bat. I was like, oh my god, yes, they totally did that. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I get it, I get you.
Yeah.
So the investigator gets interrogated, and the detective in the back with Owen and Billy are like, that dude's kind of creepy.
Oh my god,
yes. Oh my god.
Yeah, he gave me the creeps. I was just like, ugh.
I was like, even if he's not the arsonist, there's still something way fishy about him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think we mentioned in the last, I think I might have mentioned it, because one of the common things with arsonists is that they'll like, if they don't get their way, they kind of like try to prove it. I think they had kind of an element of that in 911 with the guy that stole the fire truck.
Oh, right.
And, arsonists will like prove that, or try to prove that, they can play with the big boys, and, or, he's mad because he didn't get promoted. And that was one of the things, is that he was missed up for a promotion, and he lost his wife at the end of the previous year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was trying to be seen, I guess. And so he started setting the fires in early 2021. And, for some reason I was trying to figure out why specifically he targeted Owen.
Yeah, a lot of people wanted like clarification on this.
Yeah.
And I kind of like was thinking about it today, and I was like, well, just because his wife died, and just because his wife dying, I don't think has to do with anything. And some people were like, well, we needed like a scene to know like his motives and know about her. And I disagree, because I think that like if they were to include that, I feel like it wouldn't have fit anyways. But also I feel like if they added that in, it would have also made us feel kind of sorry for him, which I didn't want at all. And I just feel like it wasn't the point. Like, it's not important to know. I think like his wife dying was just one thing after another, and he just wanted to attack somebody, even if for the most innocent person. That Gabriel and Owen were just collateral damage, basically.
Yeah. They were just the ones that happened to investigate.
Yeah, and like the promotion, I think he could have also been like jealous of Owen, because he was like a fire captain that just got brought to Texas, and he did this like huge remodel, and I'm sure that got like a lot of buzz, and he was probably like, wow, he's doing all these things and I can't even get a damn promotion. So
well, that, and also simpler, because we don't know about the arson until Owen stumbles across the fire at the warehouse. Yeah. And so I think part of it was just the fact that Owen drew attention to himself because he reported it as an arson. And maybe it was some weird, twisted way of acknowledging the recognition, but also maybe toying with the fact that, like, I don't know, that he knew it was the arsonist, but didn't think it was him.
Right, and I think one of the things with arsonists, too, is they want to be known for what they're doing.
Yeah.
So once Owen started to target somebody and figure out that it was an arson and not just an accident, he started to realize Owen was smart. And so he, like, narrowed in on Owen, and then Gabriel, obviously, because he's investigating with Owen, kind of. And
yeah.
So I
think it's a mix of reasons. I would have loved to have known more about why Owen and Gabriel specifically. Obviously, they're very successful in their careers, so I think. Because, you know, we find out later that they are both targeted via the fire at Tarlus's.
Yeah.
And it's like, some of that's just gotta be, you know, they weren't looking at him, and they were also very successful, so...
Yeah.
So Raymond kind of realizes that the whole Owen being arrested was just an act. And says he wants to talk to not just Gabriel, but he wants Owen. So Owen goes into the interrogation room with Gabriel, and they're talking.
I started feeling so worried at this point. I was like, something's gonna go down. Something's not right about this.
Owen picked up on the 11 fires that he'd already set, but he didn't actually explain that or figure out specifically that he'd also set more. So the arsonist kind of drops hints that there were some more fires and that he wants to take things from them that are close to him.
Yeah.
And before we really get any more information, there's this, I don't know, some sort of, I think it's aluminum powder of some kind. And
aluminum iodine powder.
Okay. Yeah. So if it touches water, it'll combust. And he'd apparently ground it down into like powder form, and he had it all over his body. So when he poured the water on him, he caught on fire and basically committed suicide right there in front of Owen.
Yeah. I was like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, that was my reaction. And also, like, I was trying to, like, think, I was like, wait, that happened so fast, where I was like, how did that happen? Because I didn't catch the powder until probably, like, the second or third time watching it. And I was like,
I don't think we see it, but we hear about it.
Yeah, it was just
like him just talking about the powder. At first, I thought he was going to blow up the police station.
Yeah,
that's what I thought at first.
Yeah. And then, so Billy rushes in with a fire extinguisher to put him out, but he's already gone.
Oh,
So Owen, realizing what the guy had said, calls Judd and tells him to evacuate the firehouse because he thinks that the arsonist left a parting gift. So they thankfully are able to get everybody out of the firehouse before major stuff starts to blow up, and
which is reminiscent of 118 evacuating their station with the bomb threat.
Yeah.
Which I just was thinking about. You know, I know it was a whole debate about like priorities, and why he thought the 118 or the 126 was targeted, and I'm like, at first I was like, wait, what about your son? But TK was there.
Yeah, that's my point. See, a lot of people were bent out of shape about that, but like, let's look at it this. Like, I thought about this, and I was like, I really don't think he ever expected such a personal like attack on himself. I don't think he ever expected his son's his son and his boyfriend's apartment to blow up and for him to attack him in that way. And like TK was at the firehouse, also TK's whole reaction. So
pulling the AirPod out of his head.
Yeah, Ronan made a comment when he was watching it that it was like an AirPod commercial because of how chill TK was. I was watching it this morning and I was like literally hysterically laughing. I'm like, this is way funnier than it should be, but it's just she's working in slow motion, and then eventually Marjan's like, TK, come on, let's go.
Yeah, he's like, oh, something's going on.
I love how he's just been missing it until then.
I'm like, TK, move it.
Move your ass. Yeah, I think I was just thinking about it, and I think one of the reasons it didn't call to mind that it was TK was the fact that they didn't expect Gabriel to be targeted as well,
right?
Even if it was inadvertently.
Yeah.
And TK was no longer living at Owen's. So maybe that just kind of erased the thought, oh, he's going to target Carlos and TK, because they didn't think it was going to be Carlos. Right. And the 1626 obviously is very important to Owen and is like a family. So, you get the Sueda family and the son in one place, and that seems obvious. Yeah, and that's like that would. And be also, you can't take that chance. Yeah, because like, what if? Yes, yeah, that would be like the first place he would attack, though. I would think. Mm-hmm. And he did. Yeah, but exactly. That was also to put them off their guard. Yeah, because they would think, oh, you're just gonna take the fire, so okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then so they're kind of standing there watching the explosions and stuff, and it's like, great, now we get a second remodel.
That's what I was thinking.
I really want to see the second remodel, though.
Yeah,
but I think it'll be cool because they all get to do it together now.
Yeah, well, they kind of true. Yeah, they touched on it later, which we'll talk about later, like about the whatever. But it was just like, I was like, not even like a year and a half later, it blows up.
Yeah.
And then when they're trapped with explosions. Anyway.
Yeah. So we do get a brief scene of Tommy talking on the phone to Charles, kind of explaining what happened, and he's
like, I'm gonna be a little late.
Yeah. Well, she's sharing that that we're all okay, and they're all over at Judd and Grace's. She came over to see how Grace was doing, but Billy, Judd, and Owen were at the house, and so she sits down because Charles talks her into sticking around and hanging out with her friends for a little while, and to eat something, and they share their I love yous, and they hang up, and
that was sweet, honestly.
Owen keeps kind of bouncing back in his head like something's up, and but before we get that, we get our reunion from TK and Carlos.
Oh my god,
I love this scene. This is everything.
Domestication. Just gonna put that out there. Yeah, which leads to like there's so many lines in this. Mm-hmm. Like one thing that I really liked was Carlos being like, well, if my boyfriend's firehouse is gonna blow up in the middle of the shift, I'm going to make the most of it. Carlos! Because TK's like, you didn't have to like make all this food. Yeah.
He sees the candle out and the dinner. Oh yeah.
I was like, thank you for the dinner scene. Even if we didn't get them eating, like that was kind of like we got the dinner.
That was a remake of 102.
Oh. Yes.
Yes.
And I think it's gotten buried under everything else. But like we did kind of get a remake of that. And I'm just like, hell yes.
And I loved when TK walked over to him and was just like, hi, because when Rafa said it back, because Ronan had said that was unscripted.
Ooh.
But they kept it.
I didn't hear that yet. I like hearing that now.
So even though I couldn't watch it live, I did listen to Ronan's live stream as he was watching it, and so he shared a few things, and that was one I remember.
Yeah, I missed. His was delayed, so I caught some of it. Like his was very delayed compared to when I was watching it live. But also, I was watching him kind of, but I was also like, no, I'm gonna be watching you on the screen, not on your live. I'm sorry, but you're gonna be on mute this whole time. Sorry, Ronan, I had to.
Yeah.
But my other favorite is Carlos. Like, TK's trying to apologize for what happened. He's like, about the other blow up, and Carlos is like, TK, we agreed. Nobody has to apologize. Our dads did what they had to. We were collateral damage. And I was like a lot of people thought there needed to be an apology, but like in the situation, in my way, like I don't think nobody was wrong about what happened, and like their dads put them in a very bad situation, so like there was no need for an apology, and I felt very content with the fact that they agreed that honestly, they didn't need to apologize.
Yeah. No, it was like, I know there have been so many horrible things said about that situation and stuff, but honestly, as much as I would have loved to have gotten a scene just where, like, Carlos told TK, you don't have to apologize or something, hearing the reference to it later and honestly seeing how unbothered Carlos is about anything.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know what? It's fine. You know what? I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
So I had mixed feelings about this scene as well as the scene, the blow up at the firehouse. And when I first watched it, I could tell that it was TK reacting to the news, and he was upset. And he was upset because he felt like Carlos was also accusing his dad of that and defending Gabriel. So like Katie said, like they were in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
And it was TK's like, TK should never have put his hands on Carlos.
No.
That should not have been his response. But Carlos handled it well. And if it would have escalated anymore, Carlos would have put a stop to it because he is a damn good cop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the rest of the firehouse and Carlos's partner would have stepped in as well to pull them apart.
Yeah.
There were plenty of people to have called if that was actually a situation to be concerned about.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I think if, like, that was the situation, if Carlos did have to actually, like, de-escalate it, like, seriously, I don't really think he should have been the one to do it. I think his partner should have stepped in instead of Carlos. Because that's just, like, that's not really, like, you shouldn't involve yourself in, like, relationships like that. Mm-hmm. Not to mention that could, like, break the relationship completely. And, like, obviously TK shouldn't have, like, put his hands on Carlos, like but it also wasn't like a personal like attack.
Yeah. I think it's way too far to call it abuse.
Yeah,
and that's exactly. What people have been
that was what I was getting. That's what bothered me.
Yeah, it's not abuse, and people are like claiming TK's abusive, and what I have to say about that is fuck you. I'm sorry, that was too much. But honestly,
no, fuck you. Oh my.
Okay, good. I back up.
No, and that's what's bothered me the most about this whole situation. I agree that TK should never have put his hands on Carlos, but to say that he's abusive and that was abuse is calling it way too far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was inappropriate.
Exactly.
Not abusive.
Who was in a 3-year-long marriage to an abuser and had to escape the relationship. And I called her the day after I watched this and I told her what happened. And she goes, that doesn't sound like abuse. She said that she watched the episode too because she's a fan of the show. She said that exact same. It was a situational response to some unfortunate news. And with this scene here where Carlos says, TK, we agreed, nobody has to apologize. That implies that there was an apology made either over the phone or in person previous in the episode that we just didn't see. So off screen, there was an apology.
Yeah. Or at least a very attempted
here.
One, which I'm guessing Carlos was just like, nope, don't have to apologize.
So for people to say like, and I understand like we, can write, all the fan fiction for the apologies. That's great. But just going as far as to saying that TK's abusive is just really a stretch.
Yeah.
That TK is not abusive.
Yeah.
He would never intentionally lay his hands on Carlos.
Yeah.
He would never hurt him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And even then, like, if TK had wanted to hurt Carlos, he could have gotten something in before something was put a stop to it. No, that was not what happened.
Yeah, and, like, people are just taking it too far and saying things that weren't even physically possible, which I won't repeat. But, yeah, like, just let's end those thoughts. And I know, like, a lot of people have DM'd me personally and said, like, I don't get why people are saying this. And I'm like, I don't either. I'm as clueless as you are.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, when you first watch something that you're not expecting it, and I was surprised too.
I was so surprised.
I was concerned, but I felt like, on my end, after Carlos said that about no one has to apologize, that was the implication to me that they'd already tried to apologize. They'd made an agreement that they'd already discussed it, and this was just one little phrase to address that. So they can continue on with the storyline of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I was expecting when we opened that scene to have like the apology or the making up or the hot makeup sex. You know, I was expecting that, but like I was like pleasantly surprised to find that, you know, things have already been resolved, and I think I'm actually happier that that was resolved off screen, even though part of me did want like that extra scene. I'm happier with it that way because it's like enough Harlow's drama. Let's get to the good part.
Exactly.
And
we had the good part.
They may have filmed the apology scene and just cut it for time's sake.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because they did have a lot else to put in there.
Yeah, and it would have. I don't know. Yeah, it just wouldn't have like. I don't know. I feel like it would have made the episode worse, and the episode was like phenomenal. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Also, I just love TK's lineup. But seriously, when did our dads become world-class con artists?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say that. I'm like... And
then
Carlos,
he's like, what's my dad's...
Yeah, when Carlos was like, well, my dad spent 40 years going after thieves and scammers, so I guess it rubbed off on him. And then, like, yeah, what's Owen's excuse? But the looks that they gave each other...
Oh, yeah, the looks. TK's look, and then Carlos been like,
Yeah.
Yes, love that.
Everything.
The next scene we get is they're at Billy, Tommy, Owen are at Judd and Grace's, and Billy's like, I'm just saying, if you're really sorry for knocking my block off, maybe you should give me naming rights to your firstborn. And Judd's like, well, what if it's a girl? And he's like, what, you've never heard of Billie Holiday or Billie Eilish? And I'm like, does Billy even know who Billie Eilish is?
That's
I don't
the
even
point.
know who it is.
Billy's same though. I don't listen to Billie Eilish.
Okay. Well, first of all, this is the second time they mentioned her in an episode. They mentioned her in episode 10 when TK and Carlos were at the juice bar scene. And TK was going off about the film Benjamin Button. This is how many times I rewatched season 1 during quarantine, so this is why I know too much. But my favorite part is Grace being like, Billy, you don't even know who Billie Eilish is, Billy. And I'm like, oh my god, Grace, that is like literally perfect.
Yeah.
And then Tommy's like, no, if it's a girl, hello, it's gonna be named after her godmother. And Tommy, and I'm like, and that could be a boy's name too.
That's perfect.
We love gender neutral names.
Oh my god, yes.
And I love how they start teasing Owen for not drinking his bourbon, and I think Billy says something like, if that's too spicy for you, I think there was a wine cooler in the fridge.
Yeah.
And then Owen's like, no, he's like trying to figure out their other fire because the arsonist had said there was a few other fires he set, but they only found the firehouse. So what's the other one? And Owen's like, he said he would take what's most important to me. And Billy's like, oh, you thought he said that to you? Where I was sitting, it looked like he was talking to Reyes, and then it like the light bulb went on, and Owen's like, he was talking to both of us.
Ooh. And honestly,
dun, dun, dun.
I think all of us had seen like him talking to Owen. I don't know if anyone necessarily saw him like speaking to Reyes about that, but like seeing that Billy's like, oh, from where I was sitting, it looked like he was talking to Reyes.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh,
yeah. And when I heard that line after like when I realized this after the second time, I kind of rewatched that previous scene, and it was like the way that it was filmed. They showed both like Reyes and it's still weird to call him Reyes because when I think of Reyes, I think of Carlos, not Gabriel. But when they were sitting next to each other, they show Gabriel and they show Owen sitting next to each other, but they hardly they kind of show the arsonist dude, but they also it was just kind of weird how it was filmed, so you can't really tell what he's saying.
Patchy.
Yes.
And you know what? It was made that way.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
they wanted to throw you
well
off.
Played.
Yeah.
It was genius.
So then we get because of they quickly realize what's going on, obviously. So we'll get to that, but we get to TK and Carlos are at the house and they're TK's trying to set the security alarm, but it's not working. Carlos like, oh, it's been acting up all day. I called the company; they're coming tomorrow. And
I was internally screaming because I'm like, why do you think it's been acting up all day?
Yeah.
Sexy time. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. We get a bedroom scene.
Looks.
Finally.
Yes, finally. Okay, I have so many things to say about this. Well, first off, we get this scene in the bedroom. Well, first time we see the bedroom, and man, does it look good. I would live there.
Yeah. Too bad it blew up.
I'm so sad about that. I'm in mourning.
Yeah.
I'm in mourning.
Oh my God.
R.I.P. Also, like, I noticed where the things he put are that set off the fire, and like to me, they were kind of in obvious places where I feel like you would have saw
I
them.
didn't see it.
So
but then again, I've only watched it once.
Yeah. Okay. So one of them was under the couch, which I feel like.
They showed that, and they showed
the one
under the stairs.
Table 2, that one I thought was kind of obvious because I don't know, to me they were very obvious. Maybe they weren't that obvious, but I just thought they were obvious. I was like, how did
I think camera angles made it obvious.
But I don't know, like maybe that's just my life. I would drop something and be like, what the heck is this?
Right.
Yeah.
But
also I'm just gonna backtrack tiny bit and just go that I appreciate Carlos going, are you going to make me Trishar?
And then TK being like, please do.
I agree.
Even like a tiny bit before that, when Carlos is like, come on, let's go to bed, and TK's just like, oh, just give me a second, he wants to set the alarm so bad.
I was like, relatable.
Yeah.
But then it's like successfully distracted with
and then them holding hands going upstairs.
Which is almost sad, because if you think about it, if they'd taken just a few more seconds, they might have actually been able to get out on their own. I don't know. Like, timeline is so hard to like figure out because like they go in between Carlos making out and then like Billy and Owen trying to race there. And like even before we even get to the full on thing, like just their expressions, like Carlos being like, come on, and TK them walking up the stairs. I was like, smoldering looks. I'm just gonna say the smolder.
Yeah.
That's a perfect description.
And I liked like so Billy's with Owen, and then there was 2 cars, and so Tommy, I think we learned in the last episode I need a little help from my friends episode when Grace needed help. The car that was behind him was actually Tommy's sports car. So Tommy had Judd, because Judd was at the scene, and I don't think he drove over there. So I think it was Tommy's car behind Owen and Billy.
Yeah, I didn't even notice the car.
Well, we knew she was there anyway, so that would make sense.
And Judd was also there, so we know that anyways. Yeah. That was just kind of side note, but I love like Billy and the, listening to the app.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, that's the address, right? And Owen's like, yeah. He's like, well, great. Grace must have got through. But then they find out that they were sending the 129. And Billy's like, why the hell are they sending the 129? They're like halfway across town. And Owen's like, because the 126 is out of service, and that's what they wanted. That's what the arsonist wanted, was them to be like too far away to get to the house in time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then while they're TK and Carlos are making out, we get the babe, do you smell that? And they smell the smoke and go check. And this is it was so emotional, but like kind of, I don't know. It
was a lot to process, because first of all, you have this hot ass make out. Second off, you have like, okay, they're gonna die in there, and then you're just like, oh my god. And like the music was perfect, like literally everything about this was perfect. Like
because at first they think it's just a fire. I don't think they have cause to think it's arson, so they just think it's a fire. So they think they have time to try and like figure out a way out from the bedroom.
Right.
But then it starts in the bedroom.
Right.
And at that moment, I was just going, fuck!
Right.
Yeah.
And because obviously we know they're going to be fine, but it's like, how are they in one piece and they're going to be fine? Like,
well, yeah. And then when like TK asks where the fire extinguisher, and Carlos like under the kitchen sink, and I'm like, that's probably a pretty common place to have one. Because that would be most often where you would have like the fire would be from the stove or the oven.
Okay, so
I don't actually know if it's common knowledge that you should have one upstairs.
I don't think so.
I've actually never heard that before. I think we had one upstairs when I was growing up, but don't think I've ever heard that.
Mine's always been like in the kitchen, but like I don't think it's ever been like common knowledge to know that you should have multiples, like maybe one upstairs and like on every floor maybe, but
you just hear you should have a fire extinguisher.
Basically.
That's it. That's all you hear. And so it's like, okay. Mental note for when I get a place of my own, I'm having one in my bedroom. I'm having 3 in my bedroom just in case.
Same.
What can I say? I'm paranoid.
Same. I'm the most paranoid person ever, so I get that. Yeah, and like I don't know, I just loved how like at first TK was freaking out with Carlos, but then TK realizes Carlos is freaking out, so then he kind of stops and he's more the comforting to
Yeah.
Carlos and stuff. And like I love how TK's like, "Oh, we'll just go out the window." And he's like, "How far do you think the drop is?" And Carlos is like, "Oh, 25 feet." And I'm like, "Of course it is. It's an apartment."
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, "That's our only shot." And I'm like, "Yeah, the worst thing that happens is you either die or break a bunch of bones. So I guess that's not
Right.
too bad."
Yeah. And then like TK is telling him to go first out the window, and Carlos kind of like is hesitant, and he's like, look, hey, if we and I love TK catching on to what he was trying to say, and he's like, I love you too, which is, so we officially got
the first I love you,
love
and
you
it got
too.
vanished in the episode because everything else was going on. I don't think people are appreciating that we got our first I love you.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate very much so because I'm like,
I do.
Yes. This is like one of the top things like in the episode, even though there's like so many more things I love, but like it was just like everything because like I just love it. And I love TK being the comforter since like he usually isn't.
He's usually the one like almost dying. This time it was both of them, but you know.
Yeah.
Right. And just as they were about to go jump out the window, Billy and Owen rush in and with fire extinguishers and kind of throw them the wet t-shirts to put over their mouths, and
because that's the best way to protect yourself from smoke.
Yeah, is to kind of guiding them out and downstairs. Where you see
Judd has a fire extinguisher.
And he's like, "Come on, hurry up! The place is about to flash over." And you know, they finally get Judd out too because he's kind of waiting behind.
Yeah, he kept like trying to put it out, and I'm like, a little fire extinguisher is gonna do nothing.
Yeah, it's not
You're gonna die in there. Come on, let's go.
Especially since it did flash over just a little bit after he got out.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
Because it was like, you know, if that had been a normal fire, different fires do things at different speeds, but they should have had a little bit more time than that. No, it's not certain, but in many cases they should have had a little more time.
Yeah. Well, if it was,
but they didn't. It was deliberately set in multiple areas of the apartment.
Yeah. If it had only been in one area, it wouldn't have spread that fast. But because there were so many different spots,
and does anyone else feel creepy at the thought that the investigator was just sneaking through Carlos's apartment?
Yeah, kind of creepy. Yeah,
it's kind of creepy.
That creeps me out.
Especially since we get I never thought about this before, but now that we're talking about it, I think because I was trying to avoid it, like subconsciously. But he gives me such a creeps, and the fact that he was walking through the apartment and seeing, like, imagine just there being pictures of them. I don't know. It just gives me now I'm getting like just creeped out so bad.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I want in episode 13, I want them going through the shell of the house and like trying to rescue anything. I'm going to weep, but it'll be worth it.
Oh yeah, rest in
because
peace.
It was a shell.
Yeah,
there's nothing else.
I think we need to have a moment of silence for TK's hoodies and Marlon Blendo.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough silence.
I love that. Yes, rest in peace. When I watched this, I think we were watching, I was like, rest in peace, TK's hoodies, rest in peace, Carlos's house, rest in peace, beautiful bedroom.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Carlos's mask. Those beautiful decorative masks.
Oh, rest in peace. Oh
my gosh.
The next scene is we get Carlos outside, so he's like, "We're fine, Dad." He's on the phone with this Gabriel, and he's like, "Yes, sir, I'll see you soon, love you too." And TK's like, "Is he on the way?" He's like, "I don't think I've ever heard him so upset before." And TK's like, "Yeah," but he notices that Carlos is kind of like, I don't know, still in shock.
Yeah.
He's like, "Carlos, how are you doing?" Carlos is like, "I'm good, Billy."
He's tearing up.
Like,
you can see this, and you're like, okay. I think TK was just kind of waiting for him to get over that notion that he's fine, because it was such a false notion.
Yeah.
And he's like, he was faced with death in a way that he never expected to be.
And he wasn't alone in it. He had someone he loved dearly in just as much danger as he was.
And he was afraid
powerless.
They weren't going to make it out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't think we were going to make it out. Yeah, and he's beating himself up over the extinguisher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I should have had an extinguisher in the bedroom. I'm really sorry I didn't. And I'm just starting to I'm going to weep because it's like, baby, shush. It wasn't your fault.
And I love that TK was there for him and like hugging him and like, come here. He's like, it's okay, we're okay. And it was like TK was reassuring himself, but also really reassuring Carlos and like comforting him.
I think it was like an all-encompassing we're okay. Like we made it out. Yeah. We physically are okay. We emotionally, well, we're not okay, but we'll get that. But we as a couple are okay. It's like it's kind of an all-encompassing okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like said this when Ronan posted this and stuff, but I'll say it here. But like I feel like this was like usually TK's the more vulnerable one and Carlos kind of has to be the protector, where this time they kind of switched roles and like TK is trying to protect Carlos. Also, like TK sees stuff like this like a lot, like more often than Carlos and like stuff. And like Carlos probably never has possibly ever been in that situation. So like he doesn't know what to expect. And I loved like this whole thing, and just like this is my favorite part, if not like honestly, this might be a very big claim, but this might be my favorite scene we've gotten so far all season.
Yeah, honestly,
it just hits so high.
I think it ranks just above the scene in 8.
Yes.
Like it's just barely above that, but it's there. Yeah, like this was everything I ever needed in a Tarlos scene.
Yes, and I know Ronan
and we got that like hot scene before, so you know what?
Oh yeah. And Ronan was saying that this would replace the police station scene, and I'm like, it literally does. It's like
it does.
It's like basically the same vibe as that scene. So like, and like this just like for me, this just hits so much harder. Like every time Carlos cries, I want to cry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Carlos.
Oh, like I was
Carlos was just like crying so much, and I'm like, baby. And let's be honest, the extinguisher would never have worked. Not to fight that. So it's like I think he was just kind of grasping onto the thing that he perceived as his fault.
Right.
Yeah. Because you try and grasp onto what you perceive as having control over, and to him, he had control over having the extinguisher. Yeah. And it's like, baby, that would have done nothing.
Yeah. Also, like this, like he thought that they could have died, but also like this could have been his first place that he moved out to after he moved out with his parents as an adult. So like he lost his home, they lost their home. This is also their first place that they're living in together, so they're basically homeless, even though we know nobody's gonna let them be homeless. But
they'll just have to pick somebody, honestly. Because everyone else will just be like, nope, you're coming with me.
But yes, everything. I could go on and on about this scene for probably like hours, which I won't too.
Yeah, honestly, we're making great time for having 12 pages of notes, so let's not divert now.
Right, so after our little Tarlo scene, we get Owen getting patched up and Billy getting patched up, and
because everybody got some burns.
So Billy got some burns on his forearms. Owen got some as well.
Which second degree is a little worse than I was expecting. Yeah. Because, that's first degree, terrible. Second degree, not great. And third degree are fairly minor. So they were in the not great realm.
Yeah. And I love Billy and Owen's banter about and he's like, I swear, New York, I eat more smoke hanging out with you than I ever did on fire as a fire captain. And Owen's like, it's been a weird week.
He's the best damn week of a year, and I'm like, Billy.
Honestly,
I get the point, but it was also like, Billy, did you not just see what happened?
Right.
I guess he's just been, this is still early on in the year, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's been stuck as not an invalid, but not able to do much of anything.
I think he said in last episode, he's a dog that can't hunt.
Yeah.
Aww. Yeah.
It's like, baby.
And then I love Tommy's response, like, Billy, I don't think I've ever seen anyone smile so big after having so many second-degree burns. And he's like, well, these are the least of my medical concerns, Vega. If this is my last ride, it was a hell of a ride. And Owen's like, spare me the Bondland crap. Texas, you got a whole lot more rides than you.
I'm just like, agree, but to that point, gentlemen, maybe you two should go back to golf or something. A little more
Last time they got golf together, he got struck by lightning.
And Joe's like, damn.
That's
right, I forgot about that. Well, because you two were just really a bunch of crap magnets.
Yeah.
I love it. And I would I will say my thoughts that set you guys into hysterical laughter while we watch this.
I ship it.
Yes, I ship it. And I said this after we do have a good time though, and it was like, yeah, I guess we do, and I'm like, I ship it.
Bowen.
Oh my god, yes,
it's Bowen.
Yeah, we were like, what do we call it? And honestly, when Grace said this, I literally started hysterically laughing to the point where I was crying, and I was like,
I told you guys that after the episode, I'm just like, they're not going to judge me, but like, I know this is probably really weird, but then you just were peeling the
I think we all in some way thought it at the same time.
I dare somebody tell Ronan that.
Yes, honestly, Bowen, we now officially ship it.
Billy and Owen, Bowen.
Yes.
Honestly, I could see that in its own way. Like a really good written fan fiction, I could see it.
Oh my god, yes. We were the first to say this. I will just put that out there.
Yes,
and I honestly can't wait for people to be like, crazy.
Yes, we are a little crazy here.
We are. We also like, well, with me, I ship like every gay ship possible. So
same.
Let's just be honest. So,
but it's
welcome
everything.
to my mind.
And I love in this moment the camera kind of pans out a little bit, and you see TK and Carlos walk up to them, and like Judd puts his arm around TK, and then he kind of hugs him, and I was like, oh, that was so cute.
Yes.
And I thought that was gonna be the last of the episode.
Yeah, me too. I wasn't expecting what we got next, and I am not very pleased with what we got next. It was the more I watch it, the more I hate it. So Tommy goes home, and like when they're showing her, she's like just standing there essentially, and so I'm like, what the heck is going on with this scene? It's a little odd. And then eventually she's like to Charles, like, after he was doing laundry or whatever, you gotta run her. And then they show him, and his eye is fucked up. Let's just put it that way. Like,
he looks dead.
He looks dead. His eyes discolored.
You still can't convince me that he's perhaps not dead.
Like, and honestly,
seemed like he had an aneurysm or something, because it's like bloodshot, nasty.
It just made me think, like, okay, this is probably the most shocking part of the episode, because I never expected this. I mean, I don't think
that was the last thing I ever could have called.
I don't think anybody suspected this.
Like, we had nothing to go on.
Yeah, and like
there was no way to suspect this.
It was just like so out there, and
we should know we suspect everything.
Yeah.
It was so I'm like, oh man. So we know, we'll talk about the promo later, but we know that like Tommy's administering CPR at some point, so I guess he's not dead. Which I'm just like, I'm so confused. I'm so freaking confused.
I'll save my response until we talk about the promo.
Yeah, but honestly, that scene, I was just kind of like, did you just turn a feel good ending into a dramatic? What the fuck?
Yeah, the only. After watching the episode now a couple of times, this end scene makes sense with the way she was talking to him on the phone earlier in the episode.
Yeah,
that was just kind of out of the blue, but like, okay, family, clearing that end up. I didn't mind seeing that.
Yeah.
But now it's like,
yes.
Okay.
So what kind of fan thoughts do we have? Because I know we have a few.
Yeah. Okay. We have a lot more than usual, and I'm excited about a lot of them. So
bring them
on. Bring them on.
Yeah, they're really good, and I feel like they go with a lot of things to say. A lot of people said that they suspected Billy, which I know we did a little bit, and said that, but they did say that they thought the other guy, the AFD guy, was fishy. Yes,
he was so fishy.
Yes, a lot of people said that it was epic, which we talked about this like as us, but this is honestly, I think, my season 2 was my favorite. It's in my top 3. I think it is my favorite. I just think it was the most genius episode. I can watch it every time and still be like, wow, every single time. It's just like everything. Like, I've watched it like 4 times now. So
I've watched it once, yet it still blows me over. Like. And now that like my semester is ending, maybe I'll get to actually watch things. Maybe I'll get to finally freaking catch up on 911. Anyway.
Yeah, and then a lot of people said that it was like a beautiful shipwreck, and they wish there were more depth on the dads, how they came up with the plans, which we kind of talked about how it would have made sense. Even if we wanted it really bad, it like would have taken away of like the genius part of this whole master plan.
Yeah.
A lot of people. I died. Relatable. It was sad but good. Incredible, a favorite. A lot of intensity and drama. In love with the relationship dynamics. May it keep growing. I like that one. Amazing episode, kept us guessing. Carlos wasn't prepared for the ending. Oh yeah. I don't agree with the fact that TK shoved Carlos, but say he is abusive, which we already touched. But yes, we agree with that. And absolutely amazing. Yes, I agree with I like hearing all those because I feel like I like seeing other people's views and stuff because I feel like everyone takes it differently.
So I was thinking two thoughts when you were reading and one of them was, even though we didn't want the twist of finding out early in the episode, but it would have been nice if there was a flashback at the end of the episode or towards the end where Owen confronts Gabriel either the next day or maybe before they leave. He's hey, can we talk in private?
Oh yeah, they do sometimes.
An
explanation
conversation
flashback
to how that all came about.
I would have loved seeing that.
Yeah, I think that would have been a good way to put it in, just to do a little flashback, so that way we had that, because I think it would have been nice even after the fact. If they've been after the hospital scene, doing a flashback would have been perfect, because we still would have been surprised or had that suspense element, but it wouldn't have been oh, you knew this whole time.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was oh, that would have been cool if we did do a flashback or something, and then we would have at least had a little more aware of how it came to be.
Either way, it still works, but that would have been a nice little tidbit.
And I'm not complaining. Gabriel, Benito Martinez and Rob Lowe are very good-looking men, so I'm very happy with seeing any of them on my screen.
Yes.
Honestly, yes. Very, very true. Honestly, just overall, I feel like that was a perfect episode.
Yeah.
As much perfect as it could be.
Yeah, and I think Ronan and Raphael both said during the live on Sunday that it was a beautiful, emotional shipwreck.
Oh,
was the episode.
Yes. Which at least they didn't mean the Tarlo shipwreck.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my god, the one part in the live. Okay, so I don't know how this came up, but somehow Titanic came up, and Ronan said, "Well, can I be Jack?" And people were like, "Ronan, do you realize he dies?"
Yes.
I've never seen that movie, but that just is a known fact.
Right. And yeah, because Rose at the end she's on a piece of wood floating in the water, and Jack's holding, it's swimming around with her. He's hanging off, and she hangs on to him so he doesn't fall. And she's "I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go." And then she ends up letting go, and he sinks to the bottom because he's died.
Yeah, and honestly, that I've never actually watched Titanic.
I haven't either, and I don't plan on it.
Maybe one day, but I just haven't.
Yeah, I love the movie. Historically, I love the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just.
No, what I was going with was I mainly know that because obviously Titanic, that storyline is very popular, but also I've seen the meme where it's after global warming, it's just Jack popping to the surface like Rose.
I've seen that one too.
I love that meme. Okay.
So shall we talk about the promo for 213?
Yes.
Yeah.
Promo for 213. So obviously it starts with Tommy. She's calling 911, and she's "I've got an unresponsive male. I need cardiac life support." And then she's doing CPR on him. And then we see Tommy and Owen at the hospital. So Tommy, I think, is maybe in ICU with possibly Charles in the ICU. So maybe they were able to revive him enough to get him back to the hospital, and he's in ICU.
Yeah, that's what you assume, which I'm still how is he alive? But
and when Owen answers the phone, is "Oh my god," I feel like that was Tommy calling Owen and telling him what happened with Charles, and it's "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And then we see him at the hospital, and then we hear we've got a potential shooter in the ICU.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I think. I think that's what the "I'm so sorry" is and stuff. And I don't think the potential shooter has to do with Charles or Tommy. Some people.
Oh no, I think that's just a separate event.
Yeah, it's same.
A separate event.
It could be at a different hospital too. I don't necessarily think it's at that hospital.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe. I mean, I'd be inclined to say same hospital, but
Owen
because it'd be very interesting if Tommy was in ICU with Charles and she gets pinned down.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is gonna happen.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that, but I don't know if I necessarily buy it. I don't know. I just there's so many things. Like I'm 50-50 if I think Charles dies, because I'm not honestly unsure. Like at the end of this episode, I was like, he dead, but then I'm like, wait, I don't know.
I guess it didn't die.
Right. And then we see there's the very last clip of the promo is Grace crying into Judd's chest. So that makes me think that maybe Charles passes away.
I mean, my theory is that scene is actually either learning the state, like why he's in the hospital, like learning odds or something. I don't know if that's because he passes away. I feel like that's reaction to something earlier.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, wait, maybe Grace is crying because she lost a baby, and I'm like, that's too obvious.
No, I don't think so.
I don't either.
That just
Judd and Grace, Tommy and Charles have been like their best friends since they got together. So
right, yeah,
I can see her crying over like Charles being perhaps in a coma or like some bad news coming through at odds, maybe. Yeah, like honestly, he might die. At this point, I'm like, well, I would have said he died in last episode, but apparently not. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't trust the show. So.
I don't either, because like as we know with the last promo we got, we thought that Grace didn't, but I thought that Carlos would have been separated during the fire, and like they can twist things, so like we never know like what actually is like real or not. Also, the fact that he looked different, like in the beginning when she's doing CPR, well, she could have easily closed his eyes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like it doesn't mean that he's dead or alive, but I think he is most likely like alive-ish, meaning that like
ish.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking because if he had an aneurysm rupture, he's bleeding in his brain, so he's got pressure on his brain, so a lot of times that causes people to pass out. So he could be like, his heart could be still pumping, but it's pumping blood into his brain cavity.
In which case would CPR even be wise?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
in some ways, yes.
I don't have the medical terms to address that.
Yeah. But, yeah. I mean, you have to keep the blood pumping to the other organs, or they will shut down. But so it's kind of a tough thing. Kind of like when Chim was doing CPR on that guy in the ambulance, where he'd gotten hit in the heart with a nail.
Right.
Oh, I've seen a real firefighter reaction to that, and I'm just like, I don't like watching reaction videos from like
I don't either.
EMS, because I'm like, yes, we get it, it's not realistic.
Right.
Yeah, it's a show. Shut up.
Yeah, I know. That's what I don't like about people that like react to TV shows, is they're like, this is so unreal, and I'm like, it's a TV show. They can't make it freaking 100%. Watch a documentary and shut up.
Yes. Like, even when I become a first responder, I don't want to become like that. I'm just gonna be like, okay, obviously not real, but like, good show. Shut up.
Yeah, that's my mood today. Okay.
Yeah. So Crash, we've got episode 13, and then we have 14, and then the season is over.
I know.
Top tiers.
I just realized that maybe like a week ago that literally we have 2 episodes left, and I'm like, I can't.
Can't deal with it now.
And like, I'm so hoping, because like every show I watch has already gotten renewed like within the past week, so I'm really hoping for renewal before episode 14 airs, which is the finale.
I think we'll hear possibly Monday. So we're recording this on Saturday. What day is this?
16th, maybe
15th.
I don't know.
I had to look at the calendar. So we're recording this on the 15th. I did hear that there's some upfronts on Monday the 17th, so we possibly will hear Monday or sometime this coming week. It would be really cool to get it before we do Dream It Con 3-on-1 with Ronan on.
Yes.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god, we have so many things to tell Ronan.
We have 5 minutes. 3 of us.
Yes. We've got so many things to talk to him about.
Yeah, we need to make a priority list.
There we go. We should do that this week.
Yeah,
you know what? We had goals last time we did a 3-on-1, and none of them got accomplished. So we're like,
that's true.
I have better goals this time. Okay.
Honestly, I'm also okay with just the 3 of us talking.
Yes, as long as we fit episode 12 in there, I could care less.
Like,
boy, let me just tell you. Oh, also I need to mention this when Lone Star tweeted like about a 126 hoodie and TK and Ronan being like, well, it's not TK's. I was like, too soon, Ronan. Too soon.
Too soon.
I'm gonna bring that up. Like, that was not okay. Okay, listen. I did not.
Yes.
Anyways.
Like, Ronan, will you pay for my insurance for therapy? I'm already in that, but I could
use a little bit more. Imagine that they need to make like therapy for TV shows.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
TV Watchers Anonymous.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start that.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Each of us pretend we have a psychology degree. Let's not let that will kill somebody. But anyway.
Well,
anyways,
I think
yeah,
we're done.
Yeah, I think we pretty much.
And guess what? We kept 12 pages.
Yeah.
Under 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, we did
it. Yeah. We pretty much. Yeah, we covered all the theories.
Most of it was dialogue, though, and we skimmed through dialogue, so that helps.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and almost anywhere you can find podcasts. On iTunes, please rate us and leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials at 911LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You guys can follow me, Katie, at For Love of Tarlos on Instagram and at For Love of Tarlos on Twitter.
You can follow me, Grace, at Ronan Rathlin 911 on Instagram and at Sheepgirl31 on Twitter.
You can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Twitter. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.